the starting lineup of your favorite show. At producer, 5'11" from Blanchester, the Cow Killer, Casey McCollister. And comic engineer, standing at 4'8", the pride of the West Side, Elliot Rearing. And your host, weighing 150 pounds, soaking wet, from Hamilton, Ohio, Ace Fowler.
I'm not Trace Fowler, nor am I Tom Brenneman, nor am I Reed Mouse. I'm going to need a hair check counter by somebody in the chat today, how many times I do that. Haircuts tonight. I'm getting a haircut tonight. Welcome on in. 2 Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. What a glorious day, Casey. To be on the radio. We're back on the radio. We were on the radio yesterday.
Yeah, we were on the radio yesterday.
Justin Kenner was not. Kenner and Kev were not on the radio yesterday, but we are on the radio yet again today. This is my first time hosting a radio show since I worked at that other company. Did you know that? Did you know I worked at the radio?
Did you work in radio?
I did. Now, today, I planned it to be a little bit of a different show, a little bit of a funny show. So that's just what you're going to get when I host. For those on the radio, my name is Elliot. You hear me every day. But today, I'll be taking the reins as the host. I will be doing that. Yesterday, obviously, we're going to discuss what happened. The Reds, unfortunately, got swept after sweeping the White Sox. That happened various times last season where the Reds would go on winning streaks and then they'd negate them by going on equally long losing streaks. That certainly happened yesterday. Disgusting game, disgusting performance. But again, it's 162 games. How mad can you really be? Outside of that, we've got some funny nuggets and headlines. We've got some UC basketball news. Shout out to Mouse Cop. He's going to be really excited about that today. We're talking UC basketball. We'll be talking Bengals football with Drew Garrison, Bengals football. I forgot to mention, Casey, should I be keeping time? I noticed I wasn't keeping time. You might have to be the timekeeper today. Let me see if I can get a little timer up.
I got it.
All right, you got it?
Yeah, I got it.
Because I just realized that. Usually I'm the one keeping time, and I started off this show without keeping any time. But I think we're like 2 minutes in.
We're good.
So how about that?
We're good.
Casey, how was your day? Did you have a good day yesterday?
I had a good day yesterday. It was a little bit of a day off. There was no radio show to produce for that. Kenner and Kev had the day off because of the Reds on the radio. Reds are on the radio.
That was good.
So we just kind of hung out in here, helped the guys get ready for their trip. They're going to do the Indy 500. So they're taking the truck and the video board out there to do an event in Bloomington. And, it was a nice day. It was a really warm day outside.
It was a beautiful day.
Yeah, I had the windows open. Anytime it's like this type of weather, my wife opens up the windows and we just let in all the fresh air. It's so relieving. I've
been trying to walk some more. I'm not going to shout out any other companies, but there's a company known as Barstool Sports, and they've got a guy who might be a little bit of a crazy person, respectfully, named Frank the Tank, but he's doing a good thing. He's walking every day. He's trying to get healthy. I'm going to try to do that too. I'm on day like 4 of my diet. So we'll see how that goes. But sporting news, nobody cares about that. Sporting news yesterday, Casey. We have some headlines.
We do have headlines.
Oh!
And usually you're fun to do them. But guess what? I'm taking over Elliot's job today. So
I bet these are really well written. Also, I forgot to mention this. We're kind of off the rails already to start this show. Casey informed me right before we are not on Rumble today. He looked at me and said, Elliot, I forgot. We're not on Rumble. So all the one people that watches over there, I'm very sorry. You're going to have to find us on Twitter and YouTube and probably elsewhere. Sorry for all the Rumble listeners.
Yeah, I'm very, very sorry, Rumble. I will never do that ever again.
Yeah,
I'll never forget you.
Please don't.
We appreciate your loyal ears and eyes. We appreciate it a lot. So, anyways, you ready to get into these headlines?
Oh,
I'm
ready.
Well-written headlines.
I'm ready.
We're going to start in baseball, unfortunately. Reds get swept in Seattle. Mariners win 5-1. Mariners would actually score 17 in the series. Reds only 5. Bryce Miller and 3 relievers combined for a hitter. Only 1 hit yesterday, Elly de la Cruz's home run. Reds pitching walked at least 6 batters in every game this series.
Terrible. Absolutely terrible.
And for what it's worth, Andrew Abbott pitched well, going 6 innings, striking out 6, and only giving up 2 earned runs. Pitching was great this series. Our offense was horrible. So inconsistent. Reds will try to right the ship tomorrow against the Angels. Tyler Anderson of the Angels has a 1.47 ERA and will face Nick Lodolo. I'm hoping that Nick can have a similar performance that he did when he first started. Elsewhere around the league, Red Sox shut out the Guardians 2-0, and it's the shortest recorded 9-inning game since 2010, 1 hour and 49 minutes. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty cool.
The shortest game was Armando Galarraga. I think it was a perfect game. It was a no-hitter perfect game. I think it was a perfect game. And it was the Jim Joyce call at first base. It'll be the call that lives in infamy. It was before replay. And he had one of the worst safe calls of all time. I don't even know why it would be in your mind to call a guy safe. But shout out to Jim Joyce. He felt horrible about it. They made amends. But that was the shortest recorded game, 9-inning game in MLB history.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's not like the game itself doesn't have a lot of significance, but the fact that I went by so fast, kind of cool. Angels trailed 4-3 yesterday in the top of the 9th, but Pete Fairbanks of the Rays came in and blew it.
I saw this interview immediately following because, spoiler, I had money on I had money on the Rays when they blew this, and usually I think Molly in the chat mentioned this yesterday, how athletes tend to give the same answers. No matter if it's a win, loss, you're going to get the same tropes every single time. My guy Pete here was distraught after that loss, and this is one of the better athlete interviews you'll see after a humiliating loss.
Was it just a matter of command, location, selection, anything specific?
No, I thought it generally sucked. I didn't think it was a specific suck. I thought it was like an all-encompassing type of suck. So, we're going to try and rectify that. But for right now, I'm going to be pretty pissed about it.
Right. Where do you kind of go from here? Is it
an all-encompassing suck? That's what you got out of my boy Pete last night. Shout out to the Rays. Listen, when an athlete keeps it real like that, that's when I really tend to love them. Usually you'll get I didn't have it tonight. We'll try to be better tomorrow. But if you're going to go in with I just sucked, an all-encompassing suck, you're going to win me over. So shout out to the Rays.
Yeah, sometimes it just sucks to suck.
It does. That's right.
Yeah, so moving on from that game, that pitiful game, White Sox beat the Royals 2-1 in a game 1 of a doubleheader, but fell 4-2 in the second game. There was a combined 100 people in Chicago for those.
I should have sent you this clip because there was a video of it, and usually you only see it for the Athletics. But they basically have a cell phone, and you just pan around the stadium and see how many people are there. There were legitimately not 100 people in that stadium. What's happening in Chicago for the White Sox, shout out to them because they're a disaster. A dumpster fire, as the kids say.
Yeah, pretty pathetic, I would say. Brewers win in classic fashion, winning 1-0 over the Padres. Mets destroyed the Pirates, winning 9-1. Since starting 0-5, the Mets are now 10-3. Kicked off that kind of good hot streak against the Reds.
That's
here.
right.
Orioles beat the Twins 4-2 on a walk-off Cedric Mullins home run, the first of his career. And the Giants take care of the Marlins 3-1. On to the NBA. The worst team against the spread in the league cannot cover yet again. Last night, the Bulls beat the Hawks easily 131-116.
Shout out for anybody who used my knowledge yesterday that I passed on. They had not covered in 6 of their last 7, Casey. 6 of their last 7. And people were going to bet the Hawks? No.
Yeah, that's actually pretty brutal. I remember last year they were the cover Hawks.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden they just can't cover ball games. So that's pretty tough. Kobe White of Chicago dropped 42 points to help the cause. The 76ers come back to beat the Heat and earn a date with the Knicks in the playoffs. Sixers win 105-104. Zion Williamson. There.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Will be unable to play against the Kings in their second play. In their second
playing game.
There
we go.
Excuse me.
There we go.
Due to a hamstring injury, and Jimmy Butler is feared to have suffered an MCL injury and will most likely be out against the Bulls in their next playing game. That's pretty tough.
Brutal.
Brutal news for them. In other NBA news, Jonte Porter of the Raptors has been banned for life by the NBA. Hey, similar leagues, the NBA and MLB, I guess they like to ban their players for life when they bet on themselves. He was not only betting on his prop unders, but he was also betting on their team to lose.
Here's the thing about this. Here's the thing about it. I love my favorite part about this were all the jokes that were coming with it, because all these leagues are given millions upon millions upon millions of dollars by sports books and all of that. And I kept seeing like Shams is one of the big reporter in the NBA. He's sponsored by FanDuel, so everybody was like, Jonte Porter suspended by the NBA. Use code Jonte for $150 in free bets on your next. It was very funny. And listen, we've talked about this gambling thing on the show for a while. I'm not going to get into it today, obviously, because some people just think I'm wrong. And listen, we can all be wrong. Sometimes you're right. Sometimes you're wrong. I'm wrong more times than most. He was doing it in a way that's almost like it's almost like the worst you could do. He was betting $20,000 for his team to lose games, and then for him to not enter the game and contribute like -1 rebound. It was horrible. Honestly, he should be banned for life. Terrible. Imagine not thinking you're gonna warrant an FBI call when you put $80,000 on a G leaguer, on a G leaguer who comes up for a minute a game.
Yeah, that's pretty tough.
Brutal.
I mean, if this was like a star, like, could you imagine if that was like, I don't know, Jamal Murray?
I think
like any other NBA star.
Like, I think they would hide it if it was a real star. But unfortunately for Jonte, you're out, buddy.
You're out, buddy. Moving on to the NHL. As the regular season comes to an end, only one game stood out last night. The Arizona Coyotes have played their last game in the desert. They beat the Oilers in their finale. They will be relocated to Salt Lake City.
Brutal. I saw this clip last night. I didn't even know this was happening. This is just where the NHL escapes me. Apparently, this was a move that's been in the works for a while now. The Arizona Coyotes are kind of notorious for being one of the biggest jokes in the NHL because they play at a college arena. They played Arizona State. Not a ton of people show up to their games. But last night was their finale, and it was a whiteout. It was a fun experience for the fans, and it is very sad to see them go.
So you got this clip right here?
That's right. That's right.
Let's roll
the Bubble Arena.
This was the Coyotes greeting their equipment manager for the final time. Every single one of them lined up and gave him a hug.
That's just sad. Last time that they'll ever get to see the guy, I guess. Is that why they're doing this?
Correct.
He's not. Yeah. Okay.
He is from Arizona State. I complain about ownership a lot, especially the Castellinis. It is very good, and I'm very lucky that we don't have ownership like that, who will just up and ship your team to anywhere in the country. So we're very lucky to have the Bengals and the Reds cemented here in Cincinnati, FC Cincinnati, cemented in Cincinnati, and hopefully they will stay here forever. God bless the Coyotes.
Well, we have a couple other little lighthearted things to cover here. You have here that you wanted me to talk about here on the headlines. The New Heights podcast, they released a clip of Jason Kelce talking about how he lost his Super Bowl ring.
That's right.
When he came down to Cincinnati. He lost it in a vat of Skyline chili. I'm going to roll the clip.
Roll
it. It's preposterous.
After that event, we went right to Jason lost his ring, where we had a full vat of Skyline chili. God. This is actually technically a three-way. It's not just Skyline chili. There's spaghetti in there, cheese, and chili. The video does not do justice just how disgusting this was.
I had to get away from that corner.
I went to Skyline twice over the weekend. I love Skyline chili. This chili had been sitting out for like some time period.
It smelled so bad in that part of the arena.
Mixed into that chili were socks with make-believe rings, and then there's actually only one real ring in there, which was my Super Bowl ring, that they had to try and find. One in each pool. But there was an unfortunateness. As you guys know, this game existed because I continually lose my Super Bowl ring. And I don't even know if Travis still knows this, but I legitimately lost my Super Bowl ring in this event. They could not find it. This is Jets Jake searching through, find the sock that had my Super Bowl ring in it. We have still yet to find it.
What did you expect to happen?
I thought that we would just go in the pool and get the ring afterwards.
You're such a imbecile.
Greg got a metal detector. There's actually metal in Skyline chili. There's traces of iron within the chili itself. So it's an impossible task to try and use a metal detector.
That's so good.
There's probably lead as well in there some point. It's just a hunk of metal. I'll just have another one made, I think. They can do that, right?
I don't know, Jason. Probably.
Guess we're going to find out.
I mean, that is just absolutely preposterous that they could not find his ring because there was too much iron in the chili that they couldn't use a metal detector. I mean, that's wild.
I don't know what they exactly, and again, Travis kind of said it there. I don't know what Jason thought was going to happen when you put literally your most prized possession in a sock in the bottom of a pool of chili. Did you think it was going to be easy to find? I also don't understand, like, why couldn't they just dump it out? And then I guess it's because it's hazardous. I don't know what the hell was going on. But shout out to the New Heights guys. That was funny.
Did you just say that Skyline chili is hazardous?
Yeah, well,
it's hazardous.
Why wouldn't they go to a sewer or whatever and dump it out and then wait for it to come out? You know, like you're mining for gold a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
You're sifting through the Skyline chili.
That's what you have to do. I don't know. I guess they were in a rush. I'm not sure, but I guess a little bit of slander there.
Yeah, that was called for, though. Gold Star's better.
That's right.
Anyways, we have one last headline before we wrap up this segment. The Indiana Fever. They have a very, very interesting set of reporters.
I saw this.
Greg Doyle asked some very strange questions to Caitlin Clark, had some very weird things to say to her. I'm rolling the clip.
Hi, Caitlin. Greg Doyle, Indy Star. Real quick, let me do this.
You like that?
I like that you're here. I like that you're here.
I do that at my family after every game, so.
Okay, well, let's start doing it to me and we'll be able to get along just fine. So, question is.
That's a little weird.
Yikes.
The thing that he was gesturing was the hearts. When you put your hands together like
Correct.
A heart. And that's just kind of weird to say. It was awkward, right? I think he was trying to be funny.
No, he was. It was supposed to be harmless. And Greg Doyle's a guy that's known for asking really weird questions. So nobody's surprised. I just thought, I mean, if you're going to embarrass yourself like that, that's got to be brutal. That's got to be absolutely brutal. Is that the last headline?
That's the last headline. You can throw it to break.
Well, this is my first break throw, so we'll see if I got this right. We will be right back, right here, ESPN Dayton 1410 Wing AM. We'll be right back. And we are back for the second segment of Off the Bench here on ESPN Dayton and Chatterbox Sports on YouTube. Back and better than ever. Casey, do we have a guest awaiting us right now? Is that true?
Yes, we do.
We do. Okay, so what's going to happen now is we're going to talk about some Reds baseball. I know nobody wants to talk about it, but unfortunately for me, who works in sports media, we have to talk about it. So this is a segment, and I don't want to do it again. I have to bring on Craig. So Craig, as everybody knows, he's done Chatterbox Reds with Nick Kirby. I'm pretty sure he's done some YouTube work with us. Who is it? Is it no? It's Craig. Was it Craig at 10:15?
I don't know.
Where the hell's Craig? Where is Craig?
I don't know.
Is Craig not here?
Craig's not here.
Craig, Craig? What time did I put you in at? Oh, he never got the link, Casey. He never got the link, Casey.
What do you mean? I sent a Gmail. Whatever.
This is a disaster. What a disaster. Drew knows he was on for 10:30. I booked this show to the T. I had this written down. See, now this is the part of live radio where I don't miss it because I would do this at times, time and again, where I would call. I think I was working for Lance one day, and he gives me the list of guests, and I called the guy for 9 o'clock for 6 o'clock, and Lance is like, "Who's this?" And I'm like, "Well, this is your guest," and he's like, "No, it's not. That's not my guest. He's on at 9 o'clock. What are you doing?" And it's a little bit of a pressure situation here. So we are going to wait for Craig. Drew is here patiently waiting. And honestly, I'm ready to just do the Drew interview if that's okay. I think
Craig is dialing in.
Craig is dialing in. So this is I love this. I absolutely love this. We're going to talk Reds baseball again. Disgusting series loss. 5-1. They lose yesterday to Seattle. This comes after the sweep of the White Sox where the offense looked great. Offense looked atrocious yesterday. Atrocious. These are at-bats that are getting worse and worse by the day. Jonathan India is my guy. I'm going to talk about it with Craig here in a second. But it's terrible. He's 0 for 22 in his last 22. He's 2 for 35 in his last 35. I think part of it might have to do with an injury. He suffered that injury during warm-ups, and I feel like that has something to do with it. It has to almost. But I don't understand what's going on with the Cincinnati Reds. Drew does have, Drew, for those on the radio, Drew is in our chat saying that he does have a hard out at 10:50. So
we're going to Drew.
We're going to Drew. We'll talk about the Reds in a second. What a spectacular day. Drew Garrison now joins the program, 1410 Wing AM, Chatterbox Sports. Drew, how are you doing, buddy?
Program. I love it.
You love it?
Things are going well.
Things are going. Things are certainly going. Listen, we talked about the Bengals a little bit yesterday, but I had to bring on an expert like yourself. This is a Bengals. I'm not going to use the word the captain of the Bengals because, believe it or not, there is a Bengals captain out there. But he's the guy that leads the charge. He leads in front. If the Bengals are going to war, Drew Garrison's going to be there with an armor, with a shield, with a sword, getting ready to fight. So, Drew, how the hell are you?
I'm doing good, man. It's a good day. You know, we're getting to the end of the week. It's Friday Eve, so the vibes are high.
The vibes are high. NFL draft, it's 1 week away, Drew. It's 1 week away. So question one, how big of a draft guy are you? You throwing parties for the draft? You hanging out with pops during the draft? What are you doing for the draft?
So the last few years, I usually sit here with cameras and lights on and pop into people's draft shows that they ask me to come on and say just be an idiot on the internet like I normally do. I'll probably just do that here, watch it from the house. You know, see
That's
if
big.
Had a couple people ask me to come on draft shows, stuff like that. I'll pop in there, say something stupid, and then go to the next one.
You're a busy man. What are the chances the Bengals don't have that first-round pick when we trade it to Minnesota for Justin Jefferson? Give me a percent. Give me a percentage. Give me a percentage.
Like I'll give you like 0.5%.
Okay.
I think that some of the accounts that were spinning this information out started tweeting yesterday that maybe they got bad information or maybe they were lied to. So I think that the chances are back on the way down.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, I know what's happening. We always have the friend at Kroger. Nobody's been able to locate said friend at Kroger to get an official statement. So I think the chances for that are going a little bit lower. And, I bought in for a minute. I can't lie. I don't know if it was my heart, but I just started piecing things together where I saw how it could work. But yeah, I think we're at about 0.5% on that right now.
Well, that's fair. And listen, I only take my Bengals information from you. So anything you say, I'm going to believe. And usually what you say, Casey then reiterates, and I'm like, okay, this is really happening. So Justin Jefferson, 0.5% to come to Cincinnati. I love it. But in all seriousness, every draft in the NFL is important. Bengals have a couple of areas that certainly need some help. Which positional group for you should the Bengals be targeting, and which positional group should they not be targeting, and specifically round one?
So I think in round one, you're looking at the trenches. You're looking either offensive line or defensive line. Now, me personally, if there's not a guy like Futanu, I think is how you pronounce it, from Washington there at 18, I'm going to pivot to the offense or to the defensive line. I think Byron Murphy is going to go a lot earlier than people think. So I think that we're going to be looking for like a Johnny Newton at 18, which would make me very happy. You've got your Johnny Newton with your Sheldon Rankins. Now your interior defensive line is pretty much set. Look at how the Bengals are operating, this all-in mentality that they seem to have because they're willing to pay T. Higgins a franchise tag, so they want to make another run at it. I'm looking at a guy that's going to make an impact this year if I'm operating on this is my all-in. I've got one more year of chasing Higgins. I need to go win my Super Bowl. I go get a guy like Johnny Newton who can come in and I think make an impact day one rather than an offensive lineman who's going to sit behind Trent Brown this year. Now, Trent Brown's only played 2 full seasons his whole career, so I think that they definitely could draft an offensive tackle in round one for the future. But me as a fan with I just completely blanked out and lost my words for a second. The mindset that they're operating with of going all in, I'm going to look for a guy that I can put on the field this year and get something out of. And I just personally look at the history of drafting offensive tackles since Andrew Whitworth left, and it hasn't been good. So I don't know if they'll keep doing the 1-year Band-Aids or maybe they'll try to sign a bigger free agent after the season. But if I'm the guy making the call and I'm operating from this all-in stance that it seems like the Bengals are, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go get a Johnny Newton, who I think is probably the best defensive tackle in the draft. I like him a little bit better than Byron Murphy, but looks like Murphy's been flying up boards lately, so he may go a little bit higher.
What are the chances the Bengals go wide receiver or tight end in the first round?
Only if Brock Bowers were to fall would they consider a tight end. There's nobody else that's going to be worthy of 18.
Yeah.
Receiver, I don't see it. I think there's too many receivers that you can go get in the second round. I know that they just had a meeting with Raekwon McMillan from Washington. But there's guys like Franklin. There's they've been tied a little bit to, I think, Brennan Rice. Burton from Alabama is another guy they can get in a later round. So I can't see them going wide receiver just because – they're planning on Higgins playing. Higgins says he anticipates to play, so I don't think they're worried about a holdout situation. So I think that they're going to probably target a receiver, but it'll be in the second, third round maybe. So I don't think there's hardly any chance they go wide receiver at 1.
I agree with you. Looking at the offseason thus far, the Bengals have done a decent job, I'd say. They've addressed the pass rush. Sheldon Rankins. Irv Smith was a bust, so they go out and get a veteran in Mike Gesicki. You lose Joe Mixon, you go out and get a guy who I think had a pretty damn good season in Indy with Zach Moss. Nick Scott was a failure. You go out and get Geno Stone. Von Bell comes back. Out of those guys, who are you most excited to watch this season?
It's a toss-up between Geno Stone and Mike Gesicki. I think Geno Stone, he led the AFC in interceptions last year. I think he's very, very good. I know some people say he only had 1 year. But the reason I'm the most excited to watch him is because I think he's going to replace the Dax Hill situation that we had last year. Dax Hill is a Michigan man. I love him to death.
Yep.
He's great up against, up in the box, coming off the edge. I think he's going to probably split time at slot corner with Mike Hilton as they prepare for Hilton's contract to expire and maybe put Dax there. So I'm the most excited for Geno Stone because I think he's probably filling the second highest position of need on that defense behind a nose tackle, a true run stopper. But this is a passing league, man. If your defense can defend the pass and you can get a decent pass rush, the Bengals can get more out of their pass rush than just Trey Hendrickson. They can run the ball all they want if they're down 15 or 14 points and the Bengals are able to get out to a lead. So I think that you're looking at teams that are going to air it out a lot more. You're building yourself to beat a Kansas City, a team that's going to air the ball out more often than not. So Geno Stone's probably my number 1, but I do think Mike Gesicki is going to just surprise a lot of people because he's never had a quarterback as good as Burrow. I don't think Burrow's ever had a tight end as talented as Gesicki. Yeah. So as long as his gritty has improved, he'll be good.
Now let me ask you this.
That was bad.
That was great. That was great. The radio folks are going to love it. Let me ask you this. Would you say the Bengals have made the last significant free agent signing of the offseason? Do you think they're essentially done with free agency?
I do, just because there's not really anybody out there, right?
Yeah.
I think that something that you could see as significant, and people kill me when I say this, I don't think the door's shut on a Tyler Boyd return. He's not getting the interest that he looked like he was going to get from anywhere. I know Pittsburgh made an offer, but they weren't close. So is it going to be an after the draft, maybe an in training camp thing where Tyler Boyd still doesn't have a job and he's like, hey, I can come back to Cincinnati. Nobody else is going to pay me. It wouldn't shock me if he found his way back through the door. I don't think it's likely, but I wouldn't say I'd be shocked either. But external guys on the market, there's not really anybody out there in a position that the Bengals need that I think that they would sign that's going to be anything of note.
Yeah. You mentioned T. Higgins a little bit earlier. I don't know how professional athletes deal with this because it seems like when there's a guy who's dealing with the franchise tag and he wants a bigger contract, but he knows that the Bengals aren't going to give him or his team isn't going to give it to him. It's just a lot going on in a locker room, I feel like. Do you think this distraction will A, affect Higgins' play or B, affect the Bengals' play at all this coming season?
I don't think it'll affect the Bengals play at all. I think they have such a good culture. They have such a good locker room atmosphere that one potentially maybe disgruntled guy or something isn't going to seep in and fracture things. I really don't think they will. I think Zach Taylor's done a great job creating that culture. And Burrow's done a little bit of the media stuff this offseason talked about growing as a leader. I think he's going to step into more of a leadership role as he gets older, and he could probably keep things together. When it comes to Higgins, though, I do worry just because he's a guy that he's repped by the devil, David Mulligetta, the name that we all hate to say. And if he tweaks a hamstring, you have to wonder. People are going to wonder all season long. If he tweaks a hamstring and he misses 3 games, by game 2, people are going to start wondering, is he just doing that because of his contract? Does he just not want to risk getting hurt? So it's going to be a storyline the entire year. But I don't think it'll cause any kind of an issue in the locker room. I think the Bengals are too tight-knit of an operation for that to happen.
I agree with you. And when the Jesse Bates thing happened, I think it went away as soon as the season started. So hopefully, I'm hoping that happens the same way this season. Speaking of last season, though, you can't call it a failure, but you can certainly call it you didn't live up to expectations, especially when it comes to divisional play. You can't win one divisional game in a season; it can't happen. And you can make the argument that one game was a fraudulent win anyway. This season, where do you have the Bengals' expectations? We don't have the hard schedule like we did last year, so we're not going to be able to have that excuse. This is the 6th easiest schedule on paper as of right now. Obviously, things can change, and C.J. Stroud can help the Texans become Super Bowl contenders or something like that. Some surprises can still happen. But as of right now, this is a pretty easy schedule. Where do you expect the Bengals to finish this season?
I think the Bengals are probably going to fight with Cleveland for the top spot in the division. I hate Cleveland. We don't like Cleveland, but the fact of the matter is they were an 11-win team with, I think, the most salary cap on IR last year, 5 different quarterbacks. And Cleveland is a matchup nightmare for the Bengals. I mean, you look at the previous years when it's Boyd, Higgins, and Chase. Yeah. They've got Emerson, they've got Denzel Ward, and they've got Newsome, who will just man up those 3 receivers. Myles Garrett's an alien. The Bengals have had bad offensive line, so they've just been a matchup nightmare for the Bengals over the years as it is. It's just one of those games where you get there and you say, wow, they match up really good against us. Pittsburgh, I think, is still Pittsburgh. Russell Wilson and all his corny, fraudulent.
You still think they're Pittsburgh? I'm starting to think that the Steelers might be good this year. And they're always good under Mike Tomlin, and that's with love and respect, of course, because they don't finish below 500. I don't know what that stat means to everybody, because if you finish with 9 wins, you're usually not a Super Bowl contender. But it does mean you're competing for the postseason, and when you're competing for the postseason, you have the chance for a championship. I do think they will be competing for the postseason this year again. I think the Steelers aren't bad.
No, their defense is always going to be good. That's just a Pittsburgh thing. TJ Watt is, I'm JJ, but I wear black, so I'm a bad boy, whatever. But I hate that guy. I hate that whole family. But I think that offensively, now the Ayuk thing is a little bit concerning. Are they really going to land Brandon Ayuk? It seems like they sound pretty confident that they will. But it's going to be Russell Wilson from the start.
Yeah,
I'm a Justin Fields believer. Even as a Michigan guy, I think Justin Fields can be good. If he gets in there, I think that they're going to be a little bit better. But I think they're at least going to start with Russ, and he just doesn't scare me now.
Don't let Russ cook. Don't let Russ cook. He'll burn down the whole kitchen. Let me ask you one final question before we got to go to break. One final question, Drew. Are the Bengals better today than they were last year?
They are.
They are.
I believe that. I think that they are, just on the fact that Joe Burrow's doing pull-ups, so his wrist is good. If Joe Burrow's there, they're better than they are last year. Burrow was healthy for like 3 games last year. That's what people do get it, but people like to ignore it. He couldn't walk for the first month of the year. He got healthy. They went in there and they beat the hell out of San Francisco. Looked like the best team in the league. Then he got hurt again. They're better just off of that. But I do think that they're gonna be better defensively. I think that the offensive line is going to be much better. We got Brown County now. Brown on one side, Brown on the other side. So I think that they will be better. And I think Zach Moss is going to be a surprisingly good scheme fit. And Chase Brown is super, super fast. So I think they're going to have a really good 1-2 punch at running back. So I will say today, April 18th, the Bengals are better right now than they were last season before the draft.
How about that? All right, well, Drew, one of the perks of coming on a podcast or a radio show is you get to plug something. Well, why don't you plug what you got going on right now?
So we are actually live tonight at 8 o'clock on the Big Play Cincy YouTube channel. We're going to do a live mock draft where Ron and I alternate making picks. We're going to argue about the picks, and I'm going to build the Bengals into a 10-year dynasty tonight at 8 o'clock. So if you want to check that out, the link's on my Twitter, all that good stuff. And before I go, I just want to let everybody know that I will still defend Elliot against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Drew, thank you very much for coming on. Thanks for moving up your time slot. And I'm sure I'll see you in the chat in a second. So thank you very much, Drew.
Yes, sir.
That's it for this segment. ESPN Dayton 1410 Wing M. We'll be right back with some Reds talk, hopefully. Hopefully we get some Reds talk in. We'll be right back. And welcome back in to ESPN Dayton 1410 Wing M. We are Chatterbox Sports. We are off the bench. It's Casey and I. Casey and I are running solo today. Casey, do you feel like a little bit of a bad boy when it's just me and you up here?
A bad boy?
Yeah, bad boy. Like anything can happen. Like chaos is going to ensue.
Sure, yeah.
You don't feel any chaos about to ensue? We just switched guests and nobody even knew it. Well, I told them all because I freaked out a little bit. But that's okay. That's what we do. And speaking of freaking out, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to freak out. I know everybody wants me to freak out. I know they expect me to freak out. But the Cincinnati Reds look terrible. I'm not going to freak out. And Craig's going to help me calm him down. Craig Sandlin, proud member of Chatterbox Reds, proud member of our chat on Chatterbox Sports YouTube. This is a legend of the game. Craig, and can you calm me down a little bit about the Cincinnati Reds, please? Please?
Well, first of all, Zebra,
yeah.
This is a very serious sports show.
Very
as you know.
Serious. Very.
And me, as a very unserious person, was expecting Casey to just DM me a link to join the show. And like the professional that Casey is, he sent it to my Gmail, which I hadn't even had a chance to check yet this morning because he sent it before I even woke up. Let's be honest. Being here in the Central Time Zone, he sent it at 8:20 Central this morning.
Oh, wow.
No, 8:20 Eastern this morning. So,
Casey,
I don't even know what I'm talking about. He's getting ahead of himself, and I just was not. I wasn't ready to be on such a professional show today.
Yeah.
So I apologize for forcing the chaos. That's completely on me.
Well,
it
seems like you're handling it well. When it comes to chaos and stress, everybody knows this around me. Reed knows this. Casey's known this by now. I don't know if Trace and Sean have fully seen this out of me, but if I don't know what's happening or if something unexpected starts happening, I'm going to start freaking out. I'm going to, like, surprise birthday parties, get rid of them. I don't deal with any surprises. No, I write it down on my little notebook, and I see it happen to fruition. I make it happen. So that's all I have to deal with. I don't deal with surprises, but I'm glad to see you're here and you're doing well. The Reds have gotten swept in Seattle, again, after sweeping the Chicago White Sox. They look great against Chicago. They look like the world's worst baseball team against Seattle. 6 walks at least in each single game this series. The offense, abysmal. At bats, abysmal. Outside of really 3 guys this season, I'd say the offense as a whole has been a little bit inconsistent. What have you seen from the Reds thus far, 18 games in?
I think that's a fair assessment, right? I think ultimately this offseason, the Reds spent a lot of time trying to address the depth issue on this team. Last year, there were a lot of scenarios where they were forced to play players that, quite frankly, are probably quad A players that probably didn't belong on that roster should everybody be healthy and the depth exist. The problem this year is that you went out, you addressed the depth, and then you lose guys like TJ Friedel in spring training, Matt McLean in spring training, and Noelvi Marte to idiocy, I guess, for lack of a better term, in terms of trying to get healthier quicker in order to return this team from his injury last year or over the winter. And, quite frankly, you're losing 3 of the guys that you expected to probably be 3 of your top 4 or 5 contributors on this team. And so the Reds are in a position now where they have to figure out what they're going to do, whether that means that they're going to continue to ride this out and just hope to get to the All-Star break at 500 or a little bit better, and hope that when they get guys like TJ Friedel and Noelvi Marte back, that they'll be able to bring this team back into contention for a division championship. The problem with that, obviously, is that Noelvi Marte is not going to be eligible for the postseason at this point. And so even if you do get guys like that back, what does that mean for the future? It certainly is difficult to perceive a scenario where the Reds were able to make a lot of noise in the postseason at this point. However, the other positive side of depth, as you know, is that they have a lot of pieces that they could move should they believe in buying in on this season and try to address the depth issues and some of the struggles that they've seen so far, specifically offensively. So, Candelario being sick the last 2 days didn't help. CES had the day off yesterday, and quite frankly, they faced 3 really good pitchers in Bryce Miller, Logan Gilbert, and George Kirby. So, was this series against Seattle disappointing? Absolutely. As you know, Nick and I are both extreme optimists, so trying to stay positive on the whole scenario. But I think there's just some guys that are trying to do too much. Jonathan India obviously comes to mind. For his last 22, I think is what you mentioned.
Yeah.
When you're put in a position that maybe isn't your natural position, like leadoff, he doesn't seem to be attacking the ball like he's been in years past. And so if he's trying to be Mr. Get on base like Joey Votto was, then, he's going to go through stretches like this where he just struggles because it's not his natural approach at the plate.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what's going on with Jonathan India, because at the beginning of the year, he seemed aggressive at the plate. He seemed like he was ready to roll. And now it seems like he's begging for walks. He's pleading. He's praying right before every at-bat, and he's saying, please walk me. I'm going to close my eyes. Hopefully you throw 4 balls before you throw 3 strikes. Yesterday, he didn't get the bat off his shoulder. 3 strikeouts, all looking. Something's wrong with him, right? I'm trying to point what happened to him exactly, and the only thing I can think of is that he had that little bit of an injury thing during that batting practice. Is that what it is, or is this all mental? Do you think it's mental?
I mean, yeah, I would probably lean towards the mental. I find it hard to believe that his hand is still affecting his ability to hit. And certainly from what we heard from Charlie Goldsmith, his leg was never really an issue. The game that he missed was due to his hand, not due to his leg. So I lean towards mental. I think I saw the stat on the broadcast yesterday or the day before that 44 of his at-bats this year had gone to a full count. 44% of his at-bats. Like, that's insane numbers. Not only the fact that it's that high, but just getting to a full count in general. Like, that wasn't 3 ball counts. That was full counts. So I don't know exactly what is going on with him. I like to think that he's just going through a little bit of a lull. But let's also not forget that this is a guy who has struggled the last couple of years. And so, which was more of an anomaly, the fact that he was successful at the beginning of the year or the fact that he's struggling right now?
It's fair. That's a fair point. You mentioned CES had an off day. Yesterday, I'm not going to say, you can't say any game's a must win. You really can't in a 162-game season up until September and August. You look at yesterday's lineup. I don't understand in what world does Stuart Fairchild bat third against a righty. I'm trying to imagine a world where CES has an off day right before an off day. Again, this is a game you're trying to avoid a sweep here. This is a competitive division in the NL Central. We're fighting for our lives every day here. I'm not going to sit here and say we're World Series contenders, which means that we're going to be fighting for that wild card spot. I think you're going to be fighting for the top half of the NL Central. Every game essentially, and again, I hate to say it, every game matters. So how can you rationally throw out that lineup yesterday in a must-win game? Essentially, and I'm a David Bell guy. I've been fielding David Bell hate for the better part of 2 years now. I'm under the firm belief that if the players aren't playing good, at some point the manager's gets let off the hook. Because what can David Bell? Can David Bell go over to Jonathan India and say, "Hey, buddy, why don't you try swinging? Swing your bat once." Maybe that'll work. Do you think David Bell's not saying that? I don't get it. I don't get the David Bell hate. But yesterday he made that lineup, and I don't understand it. Can you walk me through how that lineup makes any sense whatsoever to avoid a sweep right before an off day?
Well, I'll start by saying this, right? So CES had played every game this season up until then. So he played 17 straight.
Sure.
So, there were a lot of fans that 2 games ago were begging for CES to get a day off anyway. And so now he gets a day off, and fans are upset he gets a day off. So
that's fair.
As oftentimes with many fan bases. It's not unique to the Cincinnati Reds. There's zero pleasing this fan base. There's zero pleasing many fan bases, especially when your expectations were as high as they were coming into this year. And the performance so far has not necessarily met those expectations. So I do think that there's legitimate cause for giving CES a day off. If you're going to play 17 straight games, I actually believe that the day off to give is the day before a scheduled day off, because then you get 2 days off back to back and you get a real chance to recoup. Now, CES went out and had 2 hits in the first game of the series, which was great. And then he went 0 for 4 on Tuesday. So, you know, it's just one of those things where you've got to kind of play the matchups. You got to play the scenarios and what's been going on your team. Now, to address the Stuart Fairchild comments, I'm personally not one to buy in a whole lot in terms of lineup management, in terms of where guys bat, because ultimately once you get through the first inning, it doesn't really matter anyway. Listen, when you look at the lineup yesterday and you've got, you know, half the lineup batting under 250 coming into the day, let's not act like there's really a steadfast guy that belongs in that 3-hole as the lineup sat yesterday anyway, right? So whether it's Stu or Spencer Steer and then Jake Fraley batting cleanup, you know, there's arguments that could have been made across the board, but I don't think Stuart Fairchild being in the 3-hole is the reason that we got 1 hit yesterday. So, you know, spending a whole lot of time debating the lineup when ultimately nobody in the lineup produced is kind of a moot point to me. I'd rather talk about the fact that you worked literally 1 hit out of your lineup and 1 walk. You got 2 base runners the entire game, and we want to sit here and argue about whether Stuart Fairchild belonged in the 3-hole or not. So, you know, pick your arguments, I guess. But
and again, I don't mean to punch down on Stu. Stu is there's been a lot of inconsistency, I'd say, this season among the Reds lineup. Stewart has been a consistent guy. He's been able to produce. He's been able to get some hits. He's been able to play great defense. So I don't mean to bash Stu. But again, we have a guy like Santiago Espinal. He's got 4 hits on the year, no extra base hits. He doesn't produce anything either. So yesterday's lineup was just brutal to watch in a game where the offense has already struggled, not having your best 9 swinging a bat. It's tough to see. I mentioned consistency. My biggest problem with this team has been consistency. It was that last year as well. It just seems like there's various points during the season where they're there. And you could see them beating the Braves. You can see them beating the Dodgers. And then they do what happened this past series, and it's like you don't show up at all. Nobody showed up. Do you think this team is consistent enough, as of right now, 18 games in, to make a postseason run? Because I don't. I'm starting to feel a little bit of my pessimism coming in my brain and taking over. I don't think they're good enough to make the postseason right now. I don't think they're as consistently as good offensively as they need to be.
No, I mean the easy answer to that is no. They're not consistent
Correct.
enough today in order to make the playoffs. And certainly not make any noise in the playoffs. So, no, as it sits today, this team is not a playoff team. But that doesn't mean that they can't be, and that's where you kind of have to turn that positivity in. And Nick and I are, you know, our resident positive voices here on Chatterbox Reds and on Chatterbox Sports in general. You know, quite frankly, when David Bell is trying to work on a day-to-day basis and try and figure out a lineup that works, you're gonna continue to struggle and be inconsistent as we continue to try and find something that works. I mean, from my perspective at least, though, there's been one real consistent piece in this lineup so far.
Yeah.
In terms of like where they've been, and that's Elly De La Cruz. I mean, Elly batting in the 6-hole every game. He seems to have settled in a little bit. He had our lone hit yesterday, an absolute bomb, home run. And so, listen, I think for the next probably 2+ months, it's going to be some inconsistencies. I think the biggest thing for the Reds right now is that they're not going to have a 12-game win streak this year, right? Like the odds are that that's not going to happen. And so in order to ensure that you're still competitive, what that means is you have to avoid the long losing streaks. Now, obviously they're not winning as much as many fans would like them to be, But aside from this sweep, they've been able to take games in series. They've been able to win series. And so, I pumped the brakes a little bit. They ran into a really good pitching staff in Seattle, despite the fact that they missed Luis Castillo. I would also caution people this weekend. Like, I know people see the A's on the schedule, but this is a little bit of a different Angels team. And like you mentioned, they're going to run into guys like Tyler Anderson and Patrick Sandoval, two left-handers.
Yep.
Who, as we know, this team has not really had a ton of success against left-handers. So, I not only pumped the brakes a little bit on the challenges that we faced so far, but I just caution people coming into this weekend that let's not sit here and expect the offense to break out, especially on Friday or Saturday.
I'm going to end this interview on a positive. I'm going to end it on a positive because that's what I am. I'm a positive fan. Despite what my haters think, I watch these games with the rainbow glasses that you and Nick watch, and I get filled with glee and optimism. Elly De La Cruz, me included, very critical of him. I think it was like 3 games into the year. He is, I'm not going to say without question because Spencer Steer has certainly put up an argument for team MVP 18 games in. But Elly De La Cruz is everything that we'd hoped him to be thus far. Am I correct in saying that?
Everything we hoped for him to be. Let's be honest. There was some pretty high hopes, but yes, he has shown significant improvement this year, which ultimately, from my perspective, is what we needed. Right. So I wasn't looking for Elly to come out and hit 350 and smash 40 bombs this year like some fans were, but we're 18 games into the year. He's got 10 extra base hits already. He's got 11 RBIs. He's batting .277 on the season. OPS at .956. Like, Elly is doing way more than you should ever expect out of a player in his first full season in the majors. And aside from that 3-error game, or 2 officially, has shown to flash the glove now, which was certainly a something that fans were a little worried about. So, we saw it again yesterday in the play in the hole where he was able to range to his right, make the pick on the ground ball and make a missile throw over to first base. So I'm very impressed with what I've seen with Elly, and I do think that he's going to continue to grow.
Well, that's it. Craig Sandlin, thank you very much for coming on. I'm going to try to be positive. Do you predict a series victory against the Angels? Can you give me that?
No.
Oh, come on. What is that?
I just warned you. I
know you warned me, but I'd like you to say it on air.
And we're going against Patrick Sandoval. I'm not going to give people false hope. Look, I'm by the hype. Everybody knows that I'm Mr. By the Hype, and I know we got to go to break, so I'm going to keep this short. Just because you lose one series doesn't mean that the season is over, guys. We still have plenty of opportunity to win ball games and be competitive this year. One series doesn't define you. The sweep against the Mariners doesn't define you. The Angels are coming in at 9-9, and you're facing at least 2 of their top pitchers. You're missing Reed Detmers, at least projected to miss Reed Detmers. He threw yesterday. So, am I going to project a series win this weekend? Honestly, probably not.
All right. Well, I'm going to take it as you said yes. I'm going to pretend like you said yes. We are going to win this series, and I'm going to bet my money again on the Reds. I've lost so much money on the Reds so far. I bet them every game this series, and just 0 times they showed up.
For the post, Casey can go ahead and edit it, and I'll just take this little clip right here.
Yeah.
Yes, Elliot. Of course, the Reds are going to win the series this weekend. So go ahead and clip that in the post. Slide that into what I just said, and then nobody will know the difference.
All right, that's what I'll do. Craig Sandlin, thank you very much for coming on. Thank you very much for changing your time slot, and I'll see you very soon in the chat. Again, these are 2 chat legends, and I'm glad to have you there. We're going to go to break. ESPN Dayton, 1410 Wing AM. We'll be right back. Chatterbox Sports off the bench. And welcome back in Chatterbox Sports. We are here. We are live on the radio and on YouTube, Casey. How? By the way, I see this is where I'm out of my element a little bit. How long do we think that segment went? Because I'm out of my time element completely here.
So we are probably, I want to say, like 7 minutes over at the moment.
So that was like a 20-minute segment there?
Well, the first segment, or what I have here is first segment was 18. The second segment was basically another like 18, and then that one was like 18.
Okay.
So they're all
okay.
like,
So this is some inside radio for anybody listening on the radio. This is inside Chatterbox for anybody watching on YouTube. I'm in a rhythm here. This is my first time hosting on the radio. I'm trying to keep a good time score here. So when we edit this and send it over, nobody gets mad at us, and we have to edit it all out. But listen, this is great. I'm very happy to be here. Casey, do you have any thoughts about what Drew Garrison said regarding your Cincinnati Bengals?
My thoughts on what Drew had to say about the Bengals. I don't know if free agency is quite over yet, to be honest with you. I think they're going to wait until what happens after the draft before they make any extra moves. But I can see them getting like their fourth corner. Of course, if one doesn't fall to them in the first round, which I know he didn't mention that. He said it was either the trenches or nothing, basically. I don't agree with that necessarily. It depends on who's there at round one. If it's the top two corners, I'm not hesitating, and I'm going to take Quinion Mitchell or Terrion Arnold. I'm going to actually probably run up to the podium, to be honest with you. You can never have enough corners in this league. And then I want to save some of my other thoughts about the Bengals later on when we get into the draft discussion here. But some of the stuff I wanted to say about the Reds before I help out Scott here. I was talking to good friend Sir Boy Wonder about this.
Sure.
And it just feels like, for now, I've been a Reds fan for basically 2 years at this point.
Sure.
And all I can see is just how inconsistent this team is. It seems like it's a different thing every series. This series is the offense being inept. Last series it was pitching, or it was offensive errors against the Mets. Just different things like that. They're never consistent, and apparently they've never been consistent really in the last 5 years, ever since David Bell took over as the manager.
Oh, you're a David Bell hater.
No, I'm not a David Bell hater at the moment, but it does feel like this team. The consistent thing about them is being inconsistent.
I think that's fair.
I think that is a huge issue, and I think that stems a lot from how they're being developed or how they're being managed. And you brought it up. I mean, like, this is a must-win game in a series. Or it's not a must-win game, but if you want to win if you don't want to get swept, if you don't want to fall behind in your division, you should have played your starters. You don't just sub out guys and I don't know.
The off day yesterday for CES, I disagree with. I know Craig said he liked it. I just think in that specific situation, you have so much momentum after a White Sox series. You come into Seattle against a team that, let's face it, this isn't the Dodgers. This isn't the Phillies. This is a team that's going to be fighting for the playoffs too. They're just like the Reds, and they have no really business sweeping us. And I thought yesterday's lineup was essentially a joke. I'll use the term a joke because I don't think it gave you your best chance to win, and that was my issue with it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that. I don't think it gave us our best chance to win. I understand that at some point players need breaks. At some point they need breaks, and the Reds are trying to do a good job of that starting early because they need longevity out of these guys. They can't risk to wear these guys out, break them down before they even make it to August or September. So I understand that, but you look at like the last 5 games, he's had 6 hits in the last 5 games. And he's been struggling to start the season. Why would you take him out and potentially risk what he's been building so far? And I know last game that he played in, he didn't get a hit. But I think you try to still build what he's trying to do. You don't take him out when you're trying to get him out of the rut. That's how I would explain it.
So listen, this is what the radio calls a touch and go. I did a little bit of a longer touch and go there. So what we're gonna do now, right here on ESPN Dayton, we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we are gonna talk UC basketball. Everybody wants to talk about it. That's what we're going to do. I'm a UC guy. I need to talk about my Bearcats. We haven't done it on this show in quite some time, and we're going to do it with Scott Springer, Cincinnati.com, coming up next, right here on ESPN Dayton, 1410. And welcome back in. It is that time. It is time to talk about the Bearcats. I know Mouse Cop, if you're a YouTube watcher, again, you can find us on Chatterbox Sports. I know Mouse Cop in the chat wanted me to mention that UC did lose the season series to Xavier in baseball. So shout out to Xavier. I'll give him, I guess, a little bit of props here. But now we welcome in a Big J journalist. His name is Scott Springer from Cincinnati.com. I'm very honored to talk with him. This is my first time interviewing Scott. Scott, I took over for Trace today, and usually when I'm subbing in, and I get to talk to you or Charlie or any of the Big J's, I get to see how a true professional works. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm kind of a little bit of a clown. I'm a little bit of a clown, Scott. But it's fantastic to have you. How are you doing?
Well, sometimes the clown act works pretty good. So it's whatever gets you there, and don't be like everybody else. That would be my advice to anyone that's doing this for a living. Don't be like everybody else. Be yourself. Be different. For God's sakes, a radio guy in Tampa where I started. I'm from Cincinnati. Got my radio start in Tampa. A long time ago said, "Hey, we work in the toy store of life." And that's the way I've always approached it. It doesn't need a lab jacket. For God's sakes, we're talking sports. So
that fired me up a little bit. That gave me some motivation I'm going to need for these questions because I'm very excited. I'm very excited to talk Bearcats with you because obviously there's been a bunch of news in the transfer portal. But before we get there, we're a little bit ways out removed from the season. Looking back on it, a lot of people predicted the Bearcats to finish in the cellar of the Big 12, and I'd say, at least from my rationale, from my thinking, I think they overperformed. I think they performed great. Looking back at it now, I know some people might have a little bit of a bad taste in their mouth because they felt like the Bearcats could have potentially gone to the big dance, had a couple things gone right, a couple things gone differently. You don't lose to a buzzer beater to Texas. You hit a game winner against Baylor, at Baylor. A couple things go switch around, and this is a tournament team. If you look back at it right now, would you call last season a success or a failure?
I would say neither. I think Wes Miller would probably say that he was disappointed they didn't make the NCAA tournament. It's far from a failure because what I've told people that were disappointed, football and basketball, it's like, okay, take either one of those teams. Take the football team from last fall, the basketball team, put them back in the American, and let's see where they would have wound up. Probably pretty good, and you wouldn't be complaining. So you can't go and say, well, they only won 3 or they only won 22 this past year. You have to keep in mind where they were playing, who they were playing. The Big 12 was pretty awesome that now they kind of, whizzed down their leg a bit in the tournament, which is unfortunate. But still, you had a lot of those guys that made, the tournament. And Kansas, was down 2 best players against UC and then still down to McCullough in the tournament. So, there's that. There's a lot of ifs and buts and all that stuff, but it's a dynamite league. It's a great football league. You got 22 wins. You finished in the NIT quarterfinals. And if that game, truth be told, if that game were played at Fifth Third, they beat Indiana State. Indiana State had a huge advantage having that game at home. Larry Nerd was pretty good. I don't know where he's going, if he's going to St. Louis with his coach, but that entire starting 5 all transferred out, and I think 2, at least 1 is at Texas now. I forget where they all went, but they've gone to big-name schools. And so people say, oh, gosh, 2 years in a row, you lost in the NIT, you lost to Utah Valley. That Utah Valley team was pretty good. You took their big man. You lost to Indiana State. All 5 of those guys are better players than Indiana State players. So no offense to Terre Haute, but that can be a long weekend if you get stuck there.
You mentioned it. I was going to ask you later on, but I'm going to ask you now. Does Wes does Wes have a strategy going to every year where if he makes the postseason like he did this year and last year, whoever he plays, one of the teams he plays, he's just going to take one of your players?
It's cherry picking.
This year, obviously, Connor Hickman from Bradley will be joining the Bearcats. I was going to ask you about him. Will Connor Hickman make as big of an impact as UC fans hope he will next year? I think a lot of UC fans said we could have been a little bit better on the perimeter, shooting-wise. Obviously, Seamoss took over that role at the end of the season, but for a large portion during the middle of the Big 12 run, we didn't have a ton of successful three-point scores. Will this guy help? Will this guy be a helpful scorer next season for the Cats?
Well, he was a starter for him, and I believe their leading scorer overall. He had 14 in the game against UC and looked pretty decent. So, nice little audition there. And the key is, does he stay healthy? You know, that this was the role that you thought you'd get out of C.J. Frederick, and I don't know what happens with C.J. Frederick in the long run here. I haven't heard anything new as of today. But, you know, that's what you thought you were going to get out of him. Early in the season you did, but once you got to the Big 12, he had hamstring issues. So you were down a three-point shooter that you thought you had, and you were down a pretty experienced guy. So what you have here is another very experienced guy that can knock down threes. You know, 40% from threes, that's pretty good. So, although on the other hand, defensively, if you're against Oklahoma, maybe you shouldn't foul the three-point shooter and let him have 12 straight free throws, because that's going to equate to a bad loss. That's one of UC's bad losses that they had there that probably cost them an NCAA berth. But yeah, I think he'll work out. Drew Adams was a former Bradley assistant under Brian Wardle, and I'm old enough to remember Brian Wardle shooting threes for Marquette. But and Wardle, even when Hickman transferred out, went on X/Twitter and said thank you and good luck on all that stuff. So I think he understands, and I think the kid adds a lot of experience and another shooter. And you know, now you got Seamoss, and you know, Skilling started knocking him down later in the year, and Jizzle will probably improve his 3-point game, and you know, Day was lights out in the Big 12 tournament against West Virginia that one game. If you got guys hitting threes like that, you're going to win.
That's 100%.
If you miss them all, say goodnight.
You mentioned Jizzle just then. He announced yesterday, obviously, he is coming back. I do think it's funny how every player on every team has to announce they're just staying at the same school that they just played at. But nonetheless, he announced it. I'm very excited. I think a lot of UC fans saw what he did at the end of the NIT when obviously Day suffered that injury. Do you predict, and again, maybe I'm a little wrong or hopeful for saying this, I hope, and at least from what I've seen, I hope Jizzle's our starting point guard. Do you think that'll be the case at the start of next season?
I think you're going to see them both, because I talked to Jizzle the other night, and I was fortunate enough to I met Edgerman and I'm actually in North Carolina, by the way, so I'm not getting away from my duties. I was supposed to be getting away with my wife, and I've literally written like 6 articles in 2 days based on portals and everybody else signing, leaving, whatever they're doing. But Edgerman calls and says, "Here's Jizzle," and then hands me the phone. I talked to Jizzle, but yeah, Jizzle said, you know, that was a kind of a preview of what's to come, and you know, assuming they can play together, and they did more of that later in the year, but that gives you 2 dynamite quick guards. Day might be the quickest guard around. He needs to finish those layups, but he's very quick. And then you add Dan in there and Seamoss in that mix, and you know, and now you got to work on the post players here. And you assume Aziz comes back. I mean, there's always the chance that somebody takes a flyer on him, but you know, to me, it's like he needs more post moves than just dunking a ball. So you would hope he would be back. And then the Arrington Page that came out of USC here this week. I don't know a whole ton about him, but obviously he was a 4-star at one point, and UC was recruiting Isaiah Collier very heavily, and that's how they were seeing Page as well. And those two both wound up at USC. So, you know, he has visited UC before. There was a relationship there before, so that helps. And I think he averages 3 points and 2 rebounds at USC, but he was only a freshman. Those stats improve as you go. If not, then see you later. You're out the door, and that's the way it goes anyway.
I was going to ask you about our big men. Victor Locken, he announced he was transferring to Clemson. Jamil Reynolds, he transferred out already. I think he's going to South Florida. And now you have Aziz, who's a question mark. What do you think the plan will be down low this coming season? I know you just mentioned a couple names there, but is West done in the portal? Is West done with the portal?
Oh, no, I can't imagine. You should never say never in the portal.
Never.
I mean, this new era of basketball, I mean, forget the developing players. And first off, you re-recruit your guys, keep them around, the ones that you want. And a lot of times, I'll tell you, and I don't. This is not any secret information, but football, basketball, you see guys entering the portal. Sometimes it wasn't voluntary. They said, maybe you should go down the street and try it there. So that happens sometimes. I think they definitely need another decent big. I don't know who that is. I don't know who they're looking at. Obviously, Page gives you some backup there, and you assume Aziz comes back and does his thing. And, Sage Tolentino wasn't getting on the floor, so he had to go. Yeah. And Jamil, the story, he's from St. Pete, so USF is closer to St. Pete, but I live down there. It's still 45 minutes away, so don't tell me the family, close to this argument. Yeah. You just wanted to go there, get it out of your system. Vic Locken, I always thought him and Wes got along, and Wes is very good. You don't hear Wes Miller trashing any of his players or saying negative things about his players, but you can read between the lines sometimes, and just something wasn't working out with Vic there. And I don't get it, because early in the season, he's your go-to guy. Kind of, he's like a 12.9 rebound guy, and suddenly he just dissipates after his injury. And likable guy, wish him the best, but that one I found a little bit odd. But you need a little bit more experience in there, and I would assume that he's still looking.
I've never seen a fall off, and this is all with all respect to Victor Locken. I'm still trying to, and I know you just mentioned it. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly happened, because I have a hard time believing you can look
I'm
that
trying to
good.
My hat. I'm looking at myself and going, I got some cockeyed look on, but I don't know. It's. I wouldn't scare anyone by taking it. We'll just go cockeyed there.
I like this.
It's about how you look, and when you're on the radio in Dayton, you got to look good. Right?
That's right. That's right. People have been saying I have a face for radio for years. That's at least what they've been saying. I'm going to switch over to CMOS real quick. I haven't talked about CMOS yet. CMOS Lukosius was a guy at the beginning. I just thought he was going to be and this was, again, all due respect, I say. I thought he was going to be a mediocre player. I thought he was going to help out a little bit, make a couple shots, and then essentially just go on the bench. He ended up being essentially the go-to guy if the game is on the line. If there's 3 seconds left, I know who's getting the ball, and it's CMOS Lukosius. And credit to him, because he made a lot of those big shots towards the end of the season. Do you predict he will continue that momentum this season?
I think so. I think early in the year, from what I heard, he had some bothersome injuries leading up to the season. Then you get into December, and guy gets hit by a stinking car. I mean, I saw the video of it. Now, he did bounce off rather impressively off that car, but you got a guy that's 6'8", that can handle the ball, create space, get his own shot off, which he did. Wes ran a real nice play the one game against San Francisco where he gets that off at the end and puts it in. And, he had some near misses. There was a couple games that ended with CMOS misses. But, I think overall his momentum was just surging. So you have to be really excited about him. And he's a wonderful dude. A guy that speaks 4 languages and all. So, he's and then his English is flawless. You can't tell that he's from anywhere. I mean, you wouldn't guess Lithuania. I don't think. I don't know. I haven't been to Lithuania. I hear it's nice this time of year.
That's what I've heard too. My last question for you, and I'm going to let you get back to your vacation because I feel bad for taking you away.
I'm coming home today, so yeah.
So it's the last day anyway. We have Rayvon and Betsy. These are 2 guys, McKinley as well, Page as well. If you had to say one of those names, Rayvon or Betsy, is going to be the bigger X factor for the Bearcats, and they probably won't see a ton of minutes, but when they are on the floor, they'll have a damn good chance at helping this team out. If you had to pick one of those 2 to have a better season, who would you pick?
That's a tough one because I know Ray pretty well from covering him pretty heavy. I got to know him when he was an 8th grader. Oh yeah, and he was really amazing. And I think the reason he didn't play this year was, you had John Newman in front of him, and he wasn't going to get the minutes because that's about where he would go. He's kind of a 6'6" wing. In high school he played more pivot and some guard and all, but he can do a lot of things. So I saw more of his high school career than Betsy's. Betsy, though, I've seen the tape I've seen of him. I really, really like his outside shot, and if he can add some form of an inside game. And I don't, I'm not as well versed in Tyler Betsy as I am in Rayvon Griffith, but the fact that you were in the running with Alabama and Connecticut for Tyler Betsy. And then the unique thing was I've got a son and a daughter-in-law in Tuscaloosa. I was actually in Tuscaloosa the day that announcement came down. So it was very odd that I'm in a place in Tuscaloosa where everybody's listening to this announcement, hoping that he's going to go Roll Tide. And I'm a Bearcat reporter, and I'm going, well, my job's easier when good guys come to Cincinnati.
That's right.
I'm going to say Betsy. I don't mean to offend Rayvon if that gives Rayvon some motivation to do better, and I'm sure he will because he's an outstanding young man. But I like the upside of Tyler Betsy.
I'm gonna go Rayvon only because my mom is a teacher at Euler, and I believe she taught Rayvon. I'm almost positive.
Right? Yeah, he was an 8th grade standout at Euler. Yeah.
So
and it was your mother's teachings that he credited all that stuff to.
Yeah, hopefully my mom gets some NIL money too. But that's it. Scott Springer, thank you very much for joining us today on ESPN Dayton and Chatterbox Sports YouTube. Get back to your vacation. Tell your wife I'm very sorry to take you away from her.
All right. She's going to send you a nasty letter. But,
okay.
No, that's all right. You're good. Call anytime.
Be the first. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Scott. Have a good one, buddy. That was Scott Springer talking Bearcats with us here. Chatterbox Sports YouTube and ESPN Dayton, ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Casey is going to rank some draft prospects for the Cincinnati Bengals, who he wants and why. All that and more when we come back. ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. We're back. And this is not for the radio. This will just be for the YouTube channel. Casey, how are we feeling? 5 segments in. Is that right?
Yes. Let me.
And I believe we're on pace here. I think we're on. I got us back with that 8-minute segment. I think we're all on track now.
Yeah, we're doing good.
I think we're doing good.
We're doing good right now.
Anarchy today.
Yeah, so we are currently, we did 3, 4. We're going to be on 5 when we do the NFL draft talk.
I think we'll be on 6, right?
Well, the touch and go. I don't know if we're...
That counts.
Okay.
That's for radio. Because I did that too, and this is a little trick of the trade. Again, not a lot of people know this. I was on the radio. They do that so they could catch up the breaks. So I assume 17, 18, 18, 8, and then 15 is what you have. And that's what I have.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
That's essentially what we got. So that means we're on track. That means all we got to do is one last segment here for the radio. But before that, we have some ads to do. I'm going to try to think of a chat poll question while I'm sitting here. But let's do some ads. Let's do some ads real quick.
Yep, why not? Why not do some ads? The Bearcat Report, Bengal Report, and sure, why not, the Reds and FC, is brought to you by Encore Technologies. Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data-centered world with a suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing modules to improve efficiency and
productivity. You like that?
I like that.
That's my go-to dance move. It's that, and go back to me. Yeah. It's this one too. I do this one too. That's my other dance move. I got 2. I got that one, and then I got this one. Those are my 2 dance moves.
So when you're doing this, are you doing this or are you doing this?
So it's a little bit of both. It's almost like a little swinging motion there.
A little swinging motion.
Yeah.
So
you're
doing
just
like
trying to get into the
motion.
groove.
So it's a little circular motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot like that. It's like you're rowing. It's like you're rowing.
Gotcha. I like that move.
Yeah, Nate. What's up, brothers? Go ahead. Sorry, continue.
And we got our last sponsor of the day, Pawnee Water. You hear that? I'm sure you've been drinking it over there. Pawnee Water, made right here in Hamilton, Ohio, uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing the other brands use. The result is a healthy alkaline water, and some say the best tasting water in the world. Visit Pawnee Water at PAHHNIwater.com so where you can buy this great tasting water. And also, go ahead and check us out on our YouTube page. Give us a sub. Hit the like button on the stream if you're new. Also, check out our memberships. We're starting to really ramp up some of the members-only content. We're getting back into doing box lunch. We're getting back into doing previews for games. Nick Kirby does a really good job at that. We do Quiplash. Yeah, we're getting back into it. And let us know if there's anything that you guys want to see. I know we want to try to add more for you guys. And also members get discount codes. That might only be the Leader of Men that get those. But if you're wanting to get discounts in our merch store, which is Chatterbox Store, the Chatterbox Store. Is it just C-Box Store? Maybe?
I don't know. They can say that link to me 45 times, and I'll just never know it.
Chatterboxsports.com/store,
I think is what it is, right?
Yeah, if you type in Chatterbox Sports Store, you will find it in a Google search. No free ads there.
No free ads. I've got a poll question.
Okay.
It's regarding the Cincinnati Reds, and my question is this: should Jonathan India continue to stay at the leadoff position? Yes or no? The biggest point of emphasis for the leadoff position, you got to get on base. And my guy, Jonathan India, has done that to a certain degree. He just hasn't been hitting a whole lot. I don't know why that is. I don't know how that is, because he's good. He's proven that he was good. He started off the season so hot. And this is my guy, and he's just looked absolutely terrible. What I saw from him yesterday was honestly, I don't like to use this word, but it was pathetic. It was pathetic. You can't watch 3 strikeouts. You can't do it. It's unacceptable on every level of baseball. My dad would have yanked me from the game had I watched 1 strikeout, let alone 3 at a professional level. And I'm not going to compare what I did in 5th grade to what Jonathan India does against major league pitching at 99 miles an hour and curveballs with 7 feet of break. But, again, you got to swing the bat. The bat has to come off the shoulder. You can't be begging for walks in the major leagues. Can't happen unless you're Joey Votto. And in that case, you're not begging for walks. They're just walking you. So should Jonathan India continue to stay in leadoff? I'm going to say yes because he's my guy. But there's a strong rationale to thinking he should be moved. 100%. Try Elliot leadoff. I don't hate Elliot leadoff. The only issue with Elliot leadoff, Andrew, is that we need somebody down the middle of that lineup to give me an RBI. Somebody has to be there to do it. And as of this second, Jake Fraley and Will Benson, and I guess Spencer Steer, those are my 3 guys that I trust with my life to hit with runners in scoring position. Outside of that, nothing and nobody. And that's all due respect to everybody else. It just hasn't been a good, fruitful offensive year for a good majority of this lineup. Look at that little hair, tough. But yeah, I would consider moving him if this continues. I give him 1 more series. Something tells me Elliot doesn't have the speed for the leadoff spot. Craig, that was a shot. See, and now, Casey, I want you to write that down because I'm never going to invite Craig back on as long as I'm hosting. If I ever host, Craig's just now taking himself off the lineup. In fact, I might go back and edit out his segment today. I might re-record it right now because that was a preposterous, slanderous statement. Natty Ron, yeah, I will get a haircut soon. That'll be tonight, immediately after work. Again, I just have to keep doing it. It's just too long. I let it get too long. It was a mistake by me. My grandma and grandpa, they make fun of me. My dad, my mom, they make fun of me. They say, Elliot, your hair looks ridiculous. I see the comments on TikTok. They say, Elliot, you look like you're wearing a wig. Listen, guys, I can't help that I was blessed with beautiful hair. I can't do that. If I'm going to be honest with you, Casey, I might just let it grow down to my butt. I'm just going to beautiful locks all the way down. That's what we might have to do to get away with this criticism. Jolly says, flow looks good, keep it going. Thank you, Jolly. Jolly's my guy. That's why we do it. Anything else? Do we have a super chat? I saw a super chat fly in there at the beginning, and I couldn't find it.
Yes, we do have a super chat. Let me pull it up real quick.
I saw it fly in, and I think I was doing something, so.
Max Vickers.
With
a $1.99 super chat.
There we go.
Investigate the refs.
Investigate the refs.
I don't know what that's
What were we talking about when that was sent?
I have no clue.
We have to find some. Oh, it was Jonte Porter, I think. It was Jonte Porter, I'm pretty sure.
Maybe,
that has to be what he was talking about. Because, referees historically in the NBA, I forget the guy's name. Somebody's going to have to help me in the chat real quick. Donahue? Was it Donahue? Who was the referee that got caught gambling?
Yeah, Max said it was NBA suspension.
Okay, NBA suspension. Donahue, that one referee who got caught. Tough scenes. But we're about to get back on the radio, Casey.
That's
Do you
right.
have any silly thoughts, any curse words you want to get out? Because we can curse here. We can't say the big one, but we can say like shit. You want to say shit?
I don't think I have that any silliness in me.
You don't have any silliness? All right.
I have prepped and gotten ready for this segment because, to be honest with you, I've just been dying to talk draft, and I know no one in this room but me wants to talk draft talk.
Well, I don't think it's anybody that nobody wants to talk about it. I just don't know enough about it. I don't watch college football enough to say I want this guy over this guy. I just don't. I don't watch it enough. Now this year I'm going to watch it more because of the playoff, and I think more teams will be able to compete for the national championship, which I love. So I will be watching again. But as of this year, I don't got a whole lot in me. So Casey's going to carry this next segment, and that is when we come back to the radio right now. Welcome back. Welcome back to the radio, ESPN Dayton, Wing AM 1410. Listen, we are off the bench. This is our last segment, and we're going to send it off with a bang, Casey, because we are going to talk about the Bengals NFL draft. That's 1 week from today. 1 week already till the NFL draft. I'm very excited, and here's why I'm excited. It's because I get to stay up for 4 hours until the Bengals finally call their name at the 18th pick. An absurd length for these drafts. But listen, I love it. I love it. It's really the only draft I'll ever watch. The MLB draft, I say it with love and respect. I don't care. NHL draft, I don't even know if they do a draft. MLS draft, they definitely don't do a draft there. NBA draft, I'll watch the first pick, and that's usually it. But NFL is the one I will watch the entire first round. I'll stay up all 9 hours, and I'll watch every pick. Every team makes a pick. There's usually some fun things that happen along the way, some trades. And I like it. But, Casey, we're talking Bengals specifically here. We're talking the 18th pick.
I got to clarify something.
What?
The MLS has a draft. Elliot.
Yeah, but, I mean, do they, though? How would anybody know? You think people are lining up to watch the MLS draft? Probably not. But here we go. We're going to talk the Bengals now. Casey, I asked you yesterday for a top 10. Yep. I wanted a top 10 list of guys that you thought would be a great fit for the Bengals and who we should be targeting. We being the Bengals. It's unprofessional to technically say we, but I'm going to continue to say it. Who should the Bengals be targeting at the 18th spot for this draft?
Well, let me clarify something. You asked for a top 5, and I said, Elliot, there could be 10 guys there. And you said, fine, let's do a top 10. So I decided to write down some notes here and give you my top 10 guys that I would be running up to the podium if they were there available for the Bengals to draft. And starting off at number 1, I think people are going to be shocked when I say this. I've thought about this a lot. When I think of a potential blue chip, blue collar player, someone that might have instant impact, someone that is going to have a potential Pro Bowl career to start the rookie season, I think of a guy like Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is a tight end from Georgia. He didn't do any testing. He's 21 years old. But he's probably the best H-back in this draft in the last 10 years, maybe. He's probably the best H-back.
Yeah.
And he probably comes in day one and is a top 5 receiving tight end threat. I think he plays a lot like Travis Kelce. And that's – I know I'm not going to do the player comparison, but if you're going to take a guy's game, right, a guy like Travis Kelce who thrives in the middle of the field, can find the soft holes in coverages, is able to catch a ball when he's being draped over, that is Brock Bowers. And the added factor that he's really good after the catch too. He moves really well in motion. You can line him up anywhere on the field. You can line him up the X, the Y, the Z. Line him up fullback, line him on the in line, and he's going to provide you some value on this team. And like I said, if I'm looking at value day one for Bengals, I'm not looking at tackle because I know that guy's probably going to sit the bench year one. Tight end, I don't think that's solidified. And I love Mike Gesicki.
Can Brock block?
Yes, he can block as a H-back, not your traditional tight end. I think he could be a great inline blocker if you gave him time to really learn the scheme. I don't know if he comes in day one and beats out Drew Sample in terms of the blocking assignments, but that's not really what his game is anyways. Like when I say H-back, that's a guy that is probably going to line up mostly at slot and then you're going to motion him across, and then he's going to go find the outside guy and blow him up. That's what he's really good at. So in terms of his potential, I think it's through the ceiling. I think it's through the roof, especially with this offense. I was looking at some of the metrics and data, and I asked you if you could have a 30 pounds heavier CeeDee Lamb coming out of college, would you do that? And you said, well, yeah. And I said, well, that's the offensive threat that you're getting with Brock Bowers. That's the type of offensive threat, at least in terms of the metrics and the numbers, where he was catching passes, how he was able to create space, how he was able to shed tackles. Yeah.
And again, I think Drew mentioned it a little bit during that interview, during that segment earlier on in the show today. I don't think Burrow's had a tight end like that. C.J. Uzomah was okay. I think that was more of Burrow making C.J. Uzomah look great, opposed to C.J. Uzomah making Burrow look great. I think that was what was happening. And I think a guy like Brock Bowers certainly could make the Bengals offense even more lethal than it is. I don't think it'll happen, but it's certainly an option. And also, people in the chat, Casey, would like to say or ask you, why are you starting a top 10 list at number 1 instead of number 10?
That's a good. You know what? That's a really good point, guys.
So, do you want to start at number? Let's go back to number 10 here for this next one. Is that okay?
That's a fair point. Let's start at number 10. I got J.C. Latham.
Okay.
The right tackle Alabama did not test. That's a red flag for me. And the other thing too is he's an Alabama tackle. I mean, they are hit and miss. He's super strong, is a very good pass blocker. Those are two things that I think he fits what the Bengals looked for recently with guys like Orlando Brown Jr. and Trent Brown. He is a 6'6", 340-pound behemoth. Like he's a big dude. He's never going to get bull rushed, but his biggest issue is speed. And I don't think he's ever been truly tested in terms of going up against a NFL-style defense. Like he's never seen a wide 9, and I know that's a technical term, but it's a guy that lines up way outside as an edge rusher, a lot like T.J. Watt does. And when I'm thinking of a guy who's never really been tested like that, has a ton of penalties,
yep,
and is very slow, I don't know, it gets me worried. Now, when he is in position, he's not going to let you down. Like I said, he's not going to get bull rushed. If you can get hands on his guy, he's going to take care of him. I like that about him. I just worry about his physical profile. He didn't test, so that makes it a red flag for me. That's why he's 10 on my board.
The chat is saying he's a safe pick.
He's a safe pick. I do think that he's a safe pick. All the film suggests that he's a good fit for the Bengals. So I would agree with the chat. He's a safe pick at number 10.
Number 9.
Number 9. People are going to find this a little crazy because a lot of people have him slotted at the safety position. I do not. I got Cooper DeJean. Cooper DeJean from Iowa, one, incredible athlete. Tested very, very well. RAS scored 9.85. That's the highest out of all the DBs in this draft class. Was an outside boundary corner at Iowa, but he played at Iowa in the Big Ten and didn't really face great competition at receiver, but he dominated. Every metric you look at in man and zone, he absolutely dominated. And on top of that, when the guy gets the ball in his hands, he is a threat to take it to the house. He single-handedly won games for Iowa. He's a returner as well, a kick returner and a punt returner, which with the new rules of the kick returning game, I think Cooper DeJean could be a big, big beneficial factor to that. And when you're doing these evaluations, you got to add that into that equation now.
Sure.
If the kickoff continues to be the way it is, DeJean is going to get a touchdown, I would imagine, or he's going to provide you value in terms of field position that I don't think any other player can in this draft. He is that good. He is that athletic. He just has a nose for the end zone. I really like Cooper DeJean, not just as a corner, but as a guy that can threaten in the special teams area department. He's my number 9 pick. A lot of people have him slot at safety. I don't think you need to slot him at safety. I think he can work really well as a corner. So that's why he's number 9. Number 8, Terrion Arnold, another corner from Alabama. He's probably the safest corner out of all the corner prospects in the draft class. The youngest, I think, prospect in this class in terms of your top 32 players, 21 years old. The thing about Terrion Arnold is that he's just well-rounded, right? He's got the film where he can cover you one-on-one, man coverage, press coverage. He's gone up against notable talent in this draft class like Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, a couple other guys, just to I can't think of all the names off the top of my head, but he's been challenged and tested and done very well. To me, he is a solid CB1. And when I think about what could potentially happen in this draft, if the corners fall, would I rather get a guy that I think could be a star corner where you have two corners that are really good. You have a potential shutdown corner, and you have a guy that is right in the middle of the league, but still that's really good for Cam Taylor-Britt, and he's still developing. You don't know if he could end up being a great corner as well. You could have 2 shutdown corners, and that to me is very valuable, especially when we have not the greatest pass rush as of right now. I hope that changes, but to me, Quinion Mitchell, you can never, or not Quinion Mitchell, I'm sorry, Terrion Arnold, you can never have too many corners in the NFL. That's who I got at number 8.
Now, I will say, Casey, I believe if I'm doing my math right, we have 4 minutes. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a quick read through of your 7 and 6 to get to your 5, 4, 3, 2.
Yeah, all right. That's fine anyways, because I don't want to spend too much time on the corners I have listed here. Quinion Mitchell, athletic as hell, and he has small risk associated with him being from Toledo, but nonetheless, all the metrics and the athleticism with him make him a very, very valuable pick. And then I have Talisi Fuaga, the right tackle from Oregon State, at number 6. He is a very strong run blocker, doesn't really fit the Bengals schemes in terms of being a pass blocker. I think, though, you could develop him. He's not going to be starting day one. He could start at left guard. You flip him over the right guard later. He has that versatility to him. I like him at number 6. Let's get into our top 5 then.
Let's go.
Amarius Mims, number 5 for me.
I like this one.
Right tackle from Georgia. I think he has the highest upside of any tackle in this class. He is physically imposing, great strength, smooth, very good with his feet. Placement with his hands is good. The biggest knock on him is his play time in the collegiate level. Has only ever started and played and finished through 6 games in his entire career. 6 games. That's pretty tough, if you ask me. The film, though, you look at it and he's just phenomenal. I mean, he's great. You just look at the football math in terms of just being a novice evaluator. Many of you in the chat know and on the radio know that are big OSU fans. JT Tolomalu, can't say his name. Every time I say it, I say like Tommy Pickles or something like that. The OSU edge rusher, he is one of the better edge rushers next year in the draft class, and Mims completely neutralized him in the semis 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really like Mims' potential. It's just a knock on his injury history. Next.
Number 4.
Number 4, and my last tackle, honestly, in this list here. Olu Fashanu, Penn State left tackle, excuse me. He is the best fit for the Bengals in terms of what they want to do. He is a great pass blocker. Phenomenal pass blocker. Probably the best one in the class at this moment. I think that he has a little bit of a weakness in terms of his play strength in the run game, but what the Bengals are going to ask him to do, I don't see the need to worry about that, to be honest with you. The only knock on him is that he's a left tackle, so you're going to ask him to flip over. But again, when you're going to sit a guy year one, if you're going to draft a tackle, you're going to give him time to develop and learn out that spot. and learn behind Trent Brown. I think that's a good strategy there. So he is my number 1 tackle for the Bengals to select if they do go that direction.
Number 3,
Byron Murphy, Texas defensive tackle. Young, explosive, athletic. He played nose at Texas, and one of the things that he's very good at least at the college level, was splitting double teams. Was able to neutralize that part of the run game, and he was very effective at it. He's one of the best metric valued defensive tackles in the last 5 to 10 years. He's a guy that just, it doesn't matter if you double team him, if you put your best man on him, he's usually going to beat that guy. And he provides so much in terms of pass rush. I really like him a lot, but he's very raw. He doesn't have a lot of moves, and when you get to the NFL level, you really need to have an arsenal of moves to be very effective. Swim or the arm bars, things like that, traps, and he just hasn't developed that yet in his game.
Yeah.
And he's a little, I would say he's not as smooth. He's not as bendy as the next guy I'm going to talk about.
Well, before you mention the next one,
yep,
because this is the number 2 pick, but I'm going to make it the number 1 pick because we kind of spoiled the number 1. So for the sake
That's
of
fine.
drama, this is your number 1 pick for the Bengals.
That's fine because he's actually like truly my number 1 pick. I would rather pick this guy over Brock Bowers just because of the tight end to that conversation, how they develop in the NFL. Jerzon Newton. This guy is nasty, explosive, and he just never stops. Defensive tackle from Illinois. Did not test, which is a little scary, which would drop a lot of people would drop him on their boards because of that, but not me. What I see on film, it is phenomenal. Film is king. Film is king. Last year, DeJuan Jones, I pounded this table asking and pleading the Bengals to draft him at some point. They never did. I think that cost them in the long run. Jerzon Newton didn't test, has some character issues that have been rumored around. I don't know if those are confirmed, but this guy dominates. He has everything that I talked about with Byron Murphy, but he has the moves. He's got all the moves, and not only that, he finishes, and it's just nasty. There's a couple clips of him just absolutely destroying quarterbacks when he gets to them. Absolutely just crushing running backs. And it pops. He's got a lot of eye-popping film. I like Jerzon Newton. He's my number 1 guy for this draft class.
What you're saying is you want defense.
I want defense. I want defense. When you have one of the worst defenses in the NFL, I think you need to do everything in your power to add guys that are going to make a difference. And I know the 2 I listed defensive tackles wise were not nose tackles. I know that Byron Murphy has nose tackle play, but he's only like 295, 300 pounds. It's not really ideal for a nose tackle. But it solves a different issue that we've had plagued for a very long time, and that's pass rush. This is a whole different league, a whole different ball game. Pass rush is king. You get Jerzon Newton or Byron Murphy paired up with Trey Hendrickson, Miles Murphy, Sheldon Rankins, BJ Hill, and I think you've massively improved an area of weakness from last year.
I agree with you. I don't think they should go offensive line. I just don't think they've been very good at drafting them. So I don't know why you'd go back to that well. And I know the offensive line's an issue every year, but at the end of the day, I think defense is where we lost a step last season, and I'd like to get that step back starting in the draft next Thursday. That's 1 week from today. Thank you very much, Casey McAllister. That has been our show. That has been Off the Bench. Thank you very much, Scott Springer. Thank you very much, Drew Garrison. And I guess thank you, Craig, for coming on this show. This has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers on Chatterbox Sports and ESPN Dayton 1410 Wing AM, home of the best sports coverage in, what does he say, the Miami Valley? Is that right? I think that's what he says, and I'm going to go with it. Thank you guys very much. Kinner and Kev up next. Let's go. That's a dab. That's a dab, and that is the end of the radio portion of the show. So now it's just a bunch of bull junk, as Reed Mouse likes to say. Listen, YouTube does get overtime, Nate. That is correct. This is the Miami Valley. Yes, Drew. Okay, I was right. I've heard Trey say that before, and I'm going to be honest. I don't know what the hell the Miami Valley is, but sure, I'll say it for the sake of that. No knock off my game there. But what a show! I'll tell you what, Casey. I thought that was a good show. I thought it went quick. I thought it went quick. It was a good pace.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought the interviews were good. I thought they were very informative, to be honest with you. Smooth. I tried to make sure that last segment, in case we needed time, was going to be super long. So I'm sorry that I went over, to be honest with you, on the time allotted for that. But I had a lot written out here. And
yeah, I knew. I should have told you top 5 just because I knew. Because usually when you talk about these guys, it goes on forever. I've done top 10 lists, and by the time you're done talking, it's like you're 30 minutes in. You're like, and you could talk about it forever. That's the best part about the draft. So anything you didn't talk about, we can certainly talk about tomorrow, as then we'll be 6 days away from the NFL draft. But I'll tell you this: I'm excited. I'm excited for the Bengals. I don't know if I was as excited last year during the draft. I think we had a what was our pick? 20-something, 20.
Yeah, it was like 28, I believe.
So it's just like I wasn't really interested. And by the time you get to 28, you've watched 5 hours of coverage, and it's like I just don't really care. This year I'm going to be more interested. This year I'm going to be more intrigued to see who the Bengals get, what their plan will be during the draft. So I'm excited about that. Reds news. There is none other than the fact that Craig told me that the Angels were going to beat us, and all hope is lost.
That's brutal.
All hope is lost. How am I supposed to be happy about that now? Craig comes on my show. He's the biggest optimist the world's ever seen, him and Nick Kirby. They play in the sandbox, and they say, hey, we're all winners. That's what we do. We all win. And then he comes on my show, and then he says, hey, Elliot, you're going to lose. The Reds are going to lose to the Angels. And it's like, what are we doing? So Craig, Mr. Optimist, he failed me today. I'm going to have to get Kirby on next time. Maybe Kirby's going to stay true to his positive self and tell me the Reds are going to win. So that's what I got to do. Any other news in the sports world? I was trying to think. I try to watch these NBA play-in games. I can't do it. Is that bad of me?
Here's the thing: is like it's a whole nother season. We talk about this time and time again, but this is like the beginning of the new season for them. So like, what's it matter? You don't really need to watch it until it gets midway through, and then you start to really pay attention to the NBA.
It's just tough for me. I need an NBA team. That's the only way I can get back into the NBA. I'm just out of it. I just don't got it in me. Other than that, I think that's it. Case, you got anything?
Well, I mean, I can talk about stuff that's not sports related.
What's not sports related? You want to talk about the election?
No. I've been watching Game of Thrones.
That's right. You have been.
And I just finished season 1. We're 2 episodes into season 2. And this is within a 2-day stretch that we've watched.
I love this.
All this Game of Thrones. Having the Reds game on the side. I have a little TV in our living room off to the side, computer, that I keep the game on, and then the wife gets the big TV in our living room to watch stuff. And I've been following along watching it, and man, it is already season 2 was a little crazy. I know I'm like years behind in the hype of Game of Thrones, but now I'm starting to see why it's good.
The best part about Game of Thrones, and when I watched it, I watched it all in Toledo. I was at the University of Toledo. I didn't have a ton going on, so I said, you know what, I'm going to binge this right before the season came out. I think I was about 3 weeks away. I'm like, let's see if I can finish this before the season 8 comes out. And I watched the entire series of Game of Thrones in 11 days. It was the greatest feat that I've ever accomplished. I'd go all around the campus and I'd watch it in the library, I'd watch it at the Steak and Shake. Everywhere at Toledo, I'd watch Game of Thrones for like 3 hours. And then I'd just go about my day. It was honestly, it was kind of fun. But it was psycho. It was kind of fun, though. I will say this. What was your reaction to the end of game? I know you got it spoiled for you. It's hard to not get it spoiled. We won't spoil it for the audience here. But what was your reaction to the end of season 1 there? With our boy Ned.
Oh, poor Ned. I knew it was coming. It just I was shocked at how it happened. I shouldn't have been shocked. The king, the new king, just kind of He's not very good, is he?
You talking about Joffrey?
Joffrey.
Yeah, you're not going to like Joffrey very much.
Yeah, Joffrey is not very, very pleasant. Yeah, the start of season 2 kind of proves that. I mean, he's a POS. So, yeah, I thought Ned. I don't see why people were saying like it's the main character dying off. Like I never got that
you just spoiled
vibe
it for everybody.
But that's what
you just spoiled it.
It's.
I just said we weren't going to spoil it.
I don't.
And then you just kill. And then you just. I've never seen somebody just spoil an entire show more than you just did. After we said we weren't going to spoil it. I mean, how are we going to get through that? You just spoiled the whole show for everybody.
How can I spoil a show that's like 10 years old?
Well, that's true too. Continue on.
But I mean, it's. I don't know.
Season 4 is the best season of any show I've ever seen in my entire life.
That's what you keep telling me.
So I don't mean to get your hopes up for that, but it's legitimately the best season of television I've ever seen in my entire. And I'm a TV guy. I've got all the TV shows I've ever watched. I've got it on a list and I rank them. So it's fantastic.
The one thing that I cannot wait for is, and I know there's probably this long built out like payoff at the end, but I want like there to be just utter destruction to certain characters like the Lannisters and Joffrey, and there's 8 seasons of it, so I feel like there's going to be a long built out payoff at the end. But I'm already there at like season 2. I'm ready for people to just get beheaded. So it's going to be a long journey for me in terms of getting through these next couple seasons, because I'm already ready to rock heads in terms of character development. But usually I'm not a guy that likes stories like that where the setting is medieval or fantasy.
Yeah.
This has definitely changed that for me, though. I don't know why, but now I talk to my wife like I'm from the English times, when we're just sitting there on the couch. Not pillow talk, but just sitting there on the couch.
I was never going to mention that.
No, you weren't. No, you weren't, Elliot.
No. You know my favorite? I was looking back at clips. Is there a chance we can play a clip? And on this day and off the bench, even though it's not on this day?
What do you want to play?
Because that reminded me of the time you talked to Tom about your cat and or your dog and the issues medically that the dog has. But it reminds me of another time. Is there a way to pull up my Facebook and play the clip where Reed and I do the high five, and then Tom looks at you and said, "I told you not to take that shot"? Is there a way you can do that?
I don't know if I could find that in time, but I'll try.
Do you have a Facebook up on your computer?
No, I don't.
Oh my God! I might have to do it. I might have to do it. Hold on, because that is one of my favorite moments. I looked back at this video yesterday. I was about to go to bed. I was scrolling through my own Facebook, and I found the video, and it's legitimately the funniest thing. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can send it to you. Talk to the people while I do this.
Yeah, I'm just seeing some of the stuff that people are saying. Casey would be a Baratheon. I don't know if Baratheon. I don't know if that's accurate. I mean, clearly I have blonde hair, blue eyes. Reed, I guess that would make you a Lannister then, right?
Yeah, Reed would be. Well, Reed's absolutely a Lannister. Absolutely, he's a Lannister.
That's tough. I don't know if they end up getting redeemed, but I kind of doubt that.
Casey, I'm going to send this to you.
You're going to send this to me?
I don't know how I'm going to send it to you. I guess I'll Twitter DM you, and we'll see if that works that way. This is the cherry on top. And I'm sorry I didn't plan this out more, but we're on YouTube, and
this is the overtime part.
Yeah, this is the overtime. See if we should get the overtime sponsored. That'll be a good sponsor. Overtime presented by we'll get FanDuel on it. I sent it to you on DM. And I want to see if Casey can play it, because I don't know if people remember this moment. This was a silly little moment Reed and I did, and Casey was over there fighting his fight, and I looked at Reed and I said, "We're gonna just do high fives the whole time." Boom. And then Casey was instructed to not take the shot, and then he took the shot. And then Tom got mad. It was very, very funny. One of my favorite moments. I'm trying to think of other favorite moments since I've started working here. Paul quitting, that was tough. That was not a favorite moment. Jacob leaving, again, tough. Not a favorite. Did you get it up like that? Was it that quick?
Well, it's not very good quality, but we'll play
that's
it.
fine.
We'll play it anyways. Oh no. Is there no audio?
No, there is audio. What happened?
Casey,
And I asked this trio, do not take that shot. Casey?
I had already
Did I just ask you not to take
I already
that shot?
took the shot before you told me not to take it, Tom. I had already took the shot before you already told me not to.
I forgot. Oh, I forgot AJ. I forgot you in the chat. Just one of my favorite clips. It's one of my favorite clips. I had to play it today because I saw it last night. All right, I think that's it. Is that it? Do you got anything else?
I don't know. Do you have anything else
No,
you
I
want
don't
to
got
get off
anything
your
else.
chest? Anything you want
The
to
rest
talk
is
about?
just bull junk. We'll see you tomorrow with hopefully a better show with Trace Fowler, my boss, and then me and Casey will be there. And then what do we?
Give us some likes. Give us some love.
Likes. Give us some likes. If you have time, like the show. AJ, I did forget you. That AJ was mentioned in that clip. But that's it. That's our show. That's Off the Bench. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for dealing with me, putting up with my silly shenanigans today. It's a different show when I host, so thank you for still coming back to watch it. Other than that, podcast listeners, if you're hearing me, this is a message just for you. If you don't watch the show, you just listen to the podcast form. Thank you very much. I love you. Everybody else, God bless America. God bless the Reds. And hopefully they prove Craig Sandlin wrong and they win a series against the Angels this weekend. Slow clap as we end the show.